Hey guys, on my last trip out of my boat a few weeks back, my tachometer quit working for some reason. I need to take it out and see if there's loose wiring or whatever, or if it's just bad, so I can go ahead and order another one. The problem is just getting the tachometer out of this console is a real hassle. This console is so small and there is so little room to work that the easiest way for me to get it out is to remove the seat pedestal, the battery, and get all that out of the way so that I can lie down underneath and try to stick my hands up underneath there to get that thing loose. That kind of gave me an idea. I've been thinking for quite a while now that I might want to have some kind of access panel in this area right here. I was in Lowe's and I saw this little access panel, and I think it might be just about the right size to give me the needed access to the inside of this console. I've already loosened this up and removed it, and what I want to do is cut an opening there and put that in place. But what that means is, since this is larger than my seat, I want to be able to cover this entire thing. And I'll figure out some easy mechanism that I can take this off so that I can have room to get to the access panel. So that's what I'm going to work on today. So let's get started. It just so happens that I had this piece of scrap plywood, and first thing I need to do is make sure the corners are square. I'm very lucky. That's very square. I want the width of my seat back to be the same as my previous seat, which was 15 inches. And I also want a border of at least 1 inch around the entire edge so that I will have room to wrap the seat covering fabric over and around and have room to attach it along the edges. So I'm also very lucky is that this piece of wood is a little over 16 inches, so I need to cut it down to 15 inches as far as the width, and actually it's going to be about the right depth or height to give me a border on each edge. Let me get over to the saw and cut this thing down to 15 inches. This is my vacuum attachment to my saw. The next thing I want to do is I want to round over all the edges so that when I stretch my fabric, I don't have any sharp edges that will eventually tear into that fabric. I'll do that with a sander, and I'm not going to show you that because it's just pretty straightforward. What I've done is established a line across here that will be the top of my seat back, and I want to center it on the console back. So what I've done is I found a center point on the console and a center point on this, and I want to place this up there, and that will establish my sides where they should fit. And I'll do the bottom while I'm at it. Alright. Now the next step will be to center my access hatch and draw the lines for the cutout. In my carpentry work, I'm a big fan of using templates to make patterns, to cut out holes, etc., etc., etc. So what I've done is I've taped a piece of, this is stiff paper, and I've taped two pieces together, and I've cut out a template that exactly matches my seat back. I've made some centering lines that way and that way to establish a center point. What I've done on this piece is establish a center line this way and a center line that way, but I've only marked the edges. Can barely see it. And what that's going to let me do is place this on there and center all those marks. Now when I trace around this and cut it out, that will be exactly in the center of this whole piece, which represents my seat back. I'm going to remark all my lines so that I can make sure that I see them. Now I'm going to use my straight edge along with a sharp knife to cut that out. Okay, let's see if it fits. I'd say that's pretty good. Alright, I'm going to tape this to the front of my console and then draw around it and make my cutout. Alright, that looks pretty good. In fact, that looks awfully good. Well, I know I'll probably have to touch that up, but let's see. No, I don't guess I will. Okay. I'm not going to screw that in. I'm going to put some 5200 behind the flange and stick it in, and I'll clamp it in place and leave it for a while, for 24 hours at least. And that should hold that in there. I like it. The next step is to cut out a piece of foam. to use as a seat back. And I've already drawn my lines. And the best way to cut foam is with an electric knife, but I no longer have an electric knife, so I'm going to use a combination of just a straight edge and a fillet knife. I'm first going to use the straight edge to make a just a narrow cut. And you can't start right on the end, you have to start going the other direction. And then I'm going to use my fillet knife to slowly, very slowly, deepen it until I get all the way through. All right. And the next step will be to cover it with some vinyl. I had to make a trip to the local fabric store, but I did purchase an extra man card so I don't lose my man card. I feel totally out of place when I go in one of those stores, because I'll be the only man in there. And I just feel weird. Before attaching my vinyl, I like to cover the ends of the wood, the grain, the end grain, to prevent that from showing through the fabric. Over time, with that fabric stretched tight over that end grain, you can actually see the end grain coming through on the fabric. So if you cover it with electrical tape, that solves that problem. I did not show you my wrapping of this on purpose, because I am the world's worst gift wrapper. So here's the final product. Looks pretty good from the front. On the back, I sealed all my seams with waterproof tape. To attach it to my console, I decided I would put a hinge on it, like a piano hinge, and then at the top I put these little tabs so that when it comes up closed, I can put a screw through 2 of these into the console, and that will hold it in place. I got a few more screws to put in here, then I'm ready to go to the console to mount it. I've already lined it up, and I've pre-drilled all my holes, and now it's just a matter of putting in the final screws, attaching it. Works pretty good, don't you think? I've already pre-drilled my holes here, so find a couple of screws that I can put in there to keep it tight. And around the edges, I'm going to use some rubber seals to make it watertight. I haven't as yet glued this in, but I'll do that. That'll be the last thing. And this is the little insert that'll go inside. So I think this is going to work pretty well. I'm going to try to move that bus bar somewhere on this side over here so that it will be easily accessible from the hatch that I've here. As I mentioned earlier, my bus strip was located up underneath at the back there of the console, and it was pretty hard to get to if I needed to do anything. So I relocated it to the front here, and I've got it fastened to my steering cable with some electrical ties. It's pretty sturdy and it won't go anywhere, so that's going to make it a lot easier for me if I need to get in and change something electrical. I have already removed my tachometer, and all it was a loose connection, but it was much easier to get to it. It was just that easy. I have one more thing to do before I end this project, and that's put my bracket in that holds my tachometer tight, a couple of nuts, and once I get that done, I'll just snap in my plate there, close it up, tighten these two screws right here, and we're done. Well, I hope you enjoyed the video, and give me a thumbs up, and if you haven't subscribed yet, please do so. Until the next time.